Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation, what is sensorality? So yesterday we made clear, explicit, conceptual, linguistic progress. The generalization of sense is sensuality. And so I'm again in my handwritten notebooks. If you see that, again, they've already been damaged, but I want all of my writing to be preserved. If it is not, it is profound historical crime. But they've already been damaged. But if you see my actual handwriting, I did put consent throughout, or sensual, like the T. I explicitly said it multiple times in the video, but then on the video, I edited it to the S, and I want to keep it at the S, because again, as you iterate or go ordinally through, as you progress through the alphabet, you become more specific. And so the steps, again, I sit down and record the jumps and the realizations as they happen, to give you as much insight as possible, but I wanted to keep that sensual with an S the entire time, not a T. Not super important, but wanted to point that out explicitly. And so now to start for today, what's at the forefront of my mind? Again, I've already introduced, we've been 30 seconds, 45 seconds of me talking in structured syllables with sounds that have meaning. But we were born into an environment with sound. And you as a little baby, a little child in your environment, you associated sounds to meaning. And so we have three sounds that we have a clear, logical, proven relationship. E base, A inverse, I difference, right? The difference between 3 and 8 is 5. The difference between E and A is I. And now we've been broken down that statement to just, again, you're born into a world with sound, and you have the sound E, the sound A, and the sound I, and that is the chronology that they are in. If you've never been aware of that, now you are. And so, for example, if you're in a room and let's say, hey, Governor Michael DeWine, you're a criminal. He would say, who, me? I am not a criminal, right? Who, me? Again, I'm highlighting a natural use of language, right? Somebody's talking, and you're not sure who they're talking about, and you say, who, me? I am, right? That's the relationship of E, I, and A. The difference between E and A is I. Who, me? I am. Me, I am. E, I, A. In its most simplistic geometric representation, right? Me, M is a shape with geometry, and then literally the sound and the shape E, then literally the sound and the shape I, and then am, right? You don't get the exact A phonetic, but it's A transitioning into M, am. And so it's bounded by the same geometric shape, and then you just have the direct progression of E, I, and A. And so that's like the most reduced direct identity, where it has conceptual meaning. Who, me, I am not. Again, all around this identity, what are we associated with? What do we identify ourselves as? But that is the most simplistic geometric or conceptual presentation of this geometric sequence, E, I, and A. And so that is where I wanted to start, moving through our derivation steps. What is emotion to equality? Sensorality is the quality of motion. That is the fundamental theorem of physics. Sensorality is realizationality. Sensorality is sensorea. And so I did want to keep that again, is this a diphthong, this presentation where we went from real, like R-E-A-L, and then now we have this direct identity, R-E-I-A-L. So we have some sort of contraction, some sort of reduction, again, to be more efficient, right? In our natural speech, we contract syllables, and then to represent that complete difference linguistically with letters in writing, we have different shapes. And so yesterday I pronounced it as ray, and then I said it would be more like real. I wanted to say it'd still be like ray. Again, just that diphthong in the English alphabet, E to I is like an A sound. Certainly, again, comes to mind in Cyrillic. Again, the shape E, but then the ikrakayao, or like the backwards end with the thing, that's always like the A diphthong. So that's another thing that came to mind. Again, the EI, same type of shape, not the exact same letters, but again, just any logic that is present when I'm going through this derivation, I articulate. And so I want to say the pronunciation is sensorealizationality, but the spelling will be on your screen, just an amalgamation of linguistics to, again, present our conceptualization and the right linguistic representation, letter structure to derive and solidify what is sensorality. Realize, what is Z to S? So now again, we have this again, all physical systems are seeking maximum efficiency. Where are we at holistically throughout society in the progress of language? Are people in Germany in 100,000 years from now going to be speaking German? Are people in the United States going to be speaking English? What does this large-scale refinement of language look like? And frankly, I don't know. But it's certainly, we're at this refining process where we're not done yet, or we're not at maximum efficiency. And so we can see this iteration of Z, S, and C, or specifically C to S, S to Z, in the word realize, or a lot of English to American English. Where in America we would use a lot of the Z forms, and in England accepted legal spellings are with S. But again, overall, it's just this evidence of we're in this refinement process of representing sound with letters holistically at the species level, even within what we call English. But again, emphasizing, when I say English, I mean ing, lish, 2 syllables, not capital E. And so, moving along, consensuality is essential. So now, again, getting to what I said at the beginning, sensuality, right? When you spell out consensual, right, the base of consent is sensuality. But it has that, you directly see that S to the T iteration to have, again, a more specific definition, a more stabilized understanding. Consensuality is essential. Consensuality is sensuality. Again, generalizing essential. Right now we can specifically know essential is this specified form of sensuality. And so to show this differentiation where sensorality goes, we have to get the right linguistic form. Consensuality is sensuality. What is sense to consent? Sensorality is a sense of consent. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is sense to sensuality? What is sensuality to sensuality? So now we have that direct iteration from I to you, again, progressing chronologically through the vowels of the English alphabet. Is sense consensual? Can you choose what you feel? Is consent sensible? Sensorality is syllability, sensuality, the sense of syllable. Sensorality senses syllable. What is sensuality to sensibility? Is sense sensible? Direct iteration, natural definition, or again, we haven't asserted anything there, so I wouldn't call that a definition, but pointing out sense and sensible, direct iteration of the syllability. Equality is sensible. So now, right, we can have the same amount of syllables. If somebody says something and you say makes sense, right? 2 syllables, it's some sort of affirmation, right? Siento, I feel it. But you can say makes sense is the same, we can just say sensual, like conceptually at the society level. I'm sure it's not going to catch on, but that's what you're saying. It says it makes sense. It's like sense. It's sensual. Directly from our word form. So we can restate the fundamental theorem of math. Geometry contains chirality. I'm just walking you through this progression of this irreducibility already contained within shape. You can't have shape that doesn't contain chirality. That's how it progresses. That's how it's stabilized. And so now, that was another kind of one of the big things I wanted to lead off with, but it's later on in the derivation. Just conceptually, what is mathematics, right? It's clearly thematics, but overall it's decidability, right? The point of mathematics is to prove something. A proof establishes a fact. You can only prove a subset of what is decidable. Right? You can decide something, hey, that is undecidable. We don't have enough information to prove something. We don't have enough data to make a conclusion. It is undecidable. But that is still like an analytical conclusion, right? And so things you can prove are a subset of the things that are decidable to be provable. Overall, what is the relationship of provability and decidability? We get to that a little bit further in the derivation, and I'll spend a little more time there. But what is the relationship of provability and decidability? Right, you can decide things are undecidable, and that's a definitive outcome. But overall, the most general thing we can say about mathematics, geometry contains chirality. Is space special? Is space spherical? Again, I feel like we've hit those steps directly immediately, but again, it's the same thing if you put up on the chalkboard, fundamental theorem of calculus applies here, or take another derivative here. I mean, we're going through the entire analytical process. We're demonstrating the form of all specific resolution, right, with a specific example. And all of this is coming together at one, I mean, it's the whole demonstration is one resolution. But it's the form of all specific solutions, or resolutions. What is integration to area? Specifically, we go into calculus class, what is integration? It's area under the curve. Where does that come from logically? We have discreteness, we have our infinitesimal that is bounded physically, and we're adding all of those things up. But we have chronology. If I take a coffee mug and break it, it's easier to break it than to put it back together. So the integration part is the putting it back together part, which is more difficult than the deriving part. Moving along, what is generality to generosity? Is energy general? Sensuality generates. What is generating to invigorating? Algorithm invigorate. Emphasizing again the gore in invigorate and algorithm. What is invigorating to enervating? Right, that's another word where people like conceptually, it's like visceral. People use visceral correctly, instinctually a lot. But people also say like enervating, and they'll kind of like stumble. I will do it too, kind of like stumble, not really sure what you're trying to say, but it's very clear. It's enervating, and it's kind of like the opposite or the inverse of invigorating. Sensuality is sensationality. So now again, sensation, we have another presentation where we have this E and the A in a word, and it's not properly stabilized. So again, this specificity, this E-I-A relationship stabilizes certain word forms. What is sensuality to sensuationality? Sensuationality contains sensuality. Natural definition, direct iteration. So again, sense, sensation, sensuality, sensuationality. Just expansion of sense and sensation, but it's the complete linguistic representation correctly and uniquely. Sensorality is containmentality. What is containmentality to commentary? Sensorality contains commentary. What is oration to commentation? Commentation doesn't really feel like a natural word form, or it feels like a natural word form, but it's not a word form people say. Like in this progression, it's extremely natural, but what is your commentation on this? No one's gonna say that shit. I hope you can enjoy the dogs in the background. I still do not have any place to work because there are no constitutional rights in this country. Sensorality is commentationality. Natural definition, but again, conceptualization, we have to have unique linguistics. What is commemoration to commentation? What is memorality to coloration? Right? Do you remember color? What is color to memory? We color code things. We went through that quite extensively. What is sensuality to colorationality? Right? Sensorality is a sense of color. And so now, again, we generalize sense, but what about verse and tense, or just anything that ends in E? All right, remember, we're showing a form of all specific solutions with a given example, which is chronologically unique, which literally means solving all of science at the species level. That's in case you're confused, uniquely. But again, anything that ends in Y, right? We have this Y ending, which is a letter. The sound basis of Y is the sound and letter I, or not the letter, but the sound I. But sometimes the letter Y will represent the sound E. And so, trying to pull that kind of conceptualization together, again, we have this EI direct relationship. So exactly when can we take Y off of a word and apply this identity? And so, but regardless, I have tense, sense, and verse. potentiality, sensuality, and versiality, as again the direct complete expansion of all three of those word forms. Because remember, we live in 3 dimensions, or we have this fundamental stabilized aspect of 2, but then all quarks are bounded in 3. Right? Everything comes in this, what people have said conceptually is 3 dimensions, we live in 3 dimensions, is fine and is correct. Again, if you get this, there is completeness, there is a stabilized aspect within that 3. But again, we need 3 words to have a definition. And now we have this conceptual completeness, this base sense, and then this tensiality and versiality. Again, kind of an intuitive step, like why are there any other words with like ERSE or N? Because again, R and N are this relationship. Those are the words we need. I'm not sure if I can put anything else to it. But again, overall, again, how do words that end in Y, if it represents the sound E, we can definitely take off the letter Y and put the letter E, and then we stabilize that definition with that I-A-L-I-T-Y suffix progression. That is how you stabilize any word form. Moving along, tension is sension. So now when we go from tensiality, right, that's a direct iteration of sension, which is a direct iteration of sensuality. So tensiality is sensuality. Natural definition, direct iteration, right, sense, intense. What is sensuality to versiality? Right, verse, universe, the universe diversifies by inversion. And so versiality is, and then we can iterate verse to serve. Versiality is serviality. And now we have that vile, a well-defined word. Explicitly walking you through that progression. There's a lot of inversions going on. But versiality is serviality. Now we get that ch out of there, which I don't know why, but that's, again, stabilizing. It's more consonant, it's more direct, it's k, it's t, it's d. But that's a chronologically unique progression. Now we have, again, the geometric representation. What is serviality to sensuality? And the only difference geometrically is the RV in the N and the S. Sensuality is serviality. Natural definition, direct iteration. And so then going back to, I have, when does the letter Y represent the sound I and when the sound E? Because, right, Y is based on I, like the question word. What is Y? Y is what? Sensuality is servitude. What is servitude to attitude? Sensuality is servitudality. Sensuality is virtue. What is virtue to virtuality? So now again, right, when we lead off with the base, and again, this is something everyone does instinctually, but it's like we don't have like the complete rules. Right? If you generalize anything and it ends in an E, you'll very naturally take the E off and put ality. But right, you've iterated the E to a more general vowel A. Again, as proven or presented by the English alphabet. And so, but if you said virtual, right, you're not thinking virtue, but it's the same exact word form and it's the same thing. What is virtue to volume? Sensuality is volumality. Sensuality is luminality. What is luminality to luminosity? So now again we have this ality to osity, and luminosity at the base of volume. Voluminous, luminous. Luminality. Right, and you even see stuff on like, I don't know if I, like liminal spaces is another word form that immediately presents. Liminal, again, you just remove the U. Or just, no, you iterate it to an I. But you get what I'm saying. And I'm just pointing out any, because I react to the elementality, right? When there's certain, again, spacing is preserved, the structure is preserved, and it just iterates, and that's the next progression. But what is A to O? All right, sensorality. We have this O, sensor. What is sense to sensor? What is completeness to rigor? Again, Professor Teow and to all of those teachers I've had throughout my life, don't we see who's the rigorous mathematician these days? And I say that in a ha 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 tone, but like, why aren't you guys in jail? Legitimately, why aren't the people who profoundly abused me as a child in prison right now today? It's disgusting. But what is completeness to rigor? Are algorithms rigorous? Again, emphasizing the GOR, but I'm the only one that's demonstrated a proof, which is complete. And again, rigorous is like an adjective you need if it's not complete. Proof is proof. Completeness is completeness. Speciality is special with an ITY. Sensuality is almost, we're iterating it to a stabilized word form. Are censors rigorous? Censor, rigor. Sensorality is rigorality. Rigorality is algorithmicality. Natural definition, direct iteration, another word that immediately pops to mind, rigor, ignore. Still, that again, what was that ignore, right? Ignorance is ignoring, but this ing, right? English. And all of this comes together, all of this resolves with the direct, undeniable, empirically evident, like in the same time, yesterday was to me was a whoa, like on a personal level. It's like we're going to get to something where we reduce the whole structure. Is rhythm ordinal? Right? There's the TH in rhythm. What is sensuality to ordinality? Is sense ordered? Right? Would you rather be blind for the rest of your life or deaf for the rest of your life? It's kind of where that questioning comes from. A censor is a sorter. Natural definition, direct iteration. A censorist is a sensualist, right? A scientist is a censorist. A censorist is a sensualist. Scientist is sensuality, right? Your senses, sentience is sensual. But for whatever reason, again, it's a step always worth pointing out, again, how an individual calls themselves in the general, right? I'm a scientist, right? Are we saying German ist, or is it just is with a T at the end? But a sensualist is a sensationalist, right? A scientist is a sensationalist. Not in the emotional sense, but in the sense they use their sensations. Is sex sensual? Is sensual sexual? What is sensuality to sexuality? Again, emphasizing that sensuality is a direct iteration of sensuality, a specific sense of sense. Is sex consensual? Well, if you have the answer to that is no, we have a word for that. Unfortunately, because we do not have constitutional rights, I'm not going to say the word, because who knows what YouTube's algorithm is going to be offended by. Fundamental scientific derivation. But is sex consensual? You know the word. What is consensus to consensuality? Right? Now we have this con prefix on sensuality, which is sensuality. Sensuality is consensuality. What is consensuality to sensuality? Sensuality censors sensorality. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is sensation to inversion? Again, directly, immediately in my own life, I can physically feel like when you're doing grammar, that's what everyone's feeling is, again, this inversion of representing concepts, conceptualization with shapes, right? I don't feel my visual cortex flipping the information. I 100% feel the logic of the shapes presenting when I do any sort of analysis or anything. Again, going from my experience to discussing anything with anybody, right? I sit around with my parents, people I've known my entire life, and still it's like, how do you start when do you start a conversation? What do you say? It's not like awkward or cumbersome, but like you're sitting there like, do I say a lot of words? Do I say a little amount of words? Do I want to, like, if I use too little syllables, I'll just sound kind of like curt and disrespectful. And again, not in a way like I'm worried about offending my parents, but just like hey man, can you grab this when you go outside? Instead of just like, grab that for me, right? It's just like introduction, like how long since you've said something to a person that you're sitting in the same room with, like presents a different level of how many syllables are you going to use. Again, just pointing stuff out. What is sensation to inversion? I can 100% personally feel it, and I think everybody can when you construct a sentence. And you're kind of like, what words do I use? That's chirality, that's grammar in practice. Generalized is not stabilized, right? Sensuality is the general form of consensuality is the generalized form of consensuality, right? Sense versus consent. Just the S to the T emphasizing that. Sensuality stabilizes into sensorality. And now this again, why is sensorality our word that we're defining? It's just the chronological consequence of stabilizing speciality. And so, but again, the word structure, the letter O is again, definitely after A, definitely after E, definitely after I, before U. So we're getting to the point where we're just like directly pointing out all of the letters in their elemental slots. But again, what is sensorality? Once we show that direct iteration, it demonstrates all of this analytical process and form and structure all at one time. And we're almost done. My rights remain violated. It is all illegal. Is consent contextual? So that's a good, again, direct iteration. Is consent context, C-O-N-S to C-O-N-T. What is contextuality to consensuality? Context, contend, emphasizing the difference is the XT and the ND. Competition, contends. Because now remember, right, ality is our generalizing thing, so we had sensorality. And so it's like, again, I think either the entire vowel structure reduces, I think it's the consonants, because vowels vibrate, vibration, resonance, resonance is the thing. Right? Resonance produces resolution. That's literally the stuff you see. Or stabilized charge, conserve charge, preserving mass. Mass being our emergent thing. Density being definite. But this, what is reducing? The vowels in relation to the vowels, the consonants in relation to the vowels. I'm pretty sure we showed direct geometric consistency. Of the vowel structure, and then the leftover consonants is literally what we put ality on, and that's the next word form. But we'll get there when we get there, if we get there, which should be so freaking close. Competition, contends. Contention is competition. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is contention to consensus? Right? If consensus, if we're all on the same page, is there contention? What is consistency to chirality? Right, this is what I've called the bumpy roller coaster logic. We read Andrew Ross Sorkin's book, and he's saying, oh, we do this, blah, blah, blah. But it's just, again, you're reacting to the chirality, right? Consistency of logical flow. When you're reading something and it's just smooth. You're literally geometrically, like the person reading it is seeing shapes they've seen before, representing sounds in a discrete, direct, unique order. And so when you like mess up that consistency, like you'll notice the chirality, it will feel like you're herky-jerky starting and stopping to the actual flow of reading. Right? When we read out loud and it's like, I naturally mess up words like any other person, but then there's clear times when it's like most of the time, I'm reacting to like, it's like, okay, we're getting going, and this is like this herky-jerky logic. And it's just this inconsistency of chirality presented by the letters. But this is where I had mathematics is decidability. I wanted to emphasize, what's on your screen will be my natural spellings. I had decidability with a D-ability, not a D-ability, an I, not an A. Sensorality, decides. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is sensation to decision? Decidability limits provability. So this is what I led with, where it's like the exact, again, chronology, the cardinality, what's bigger, the set of things that are decidable or the set of things that are provable, right? If it's provable, it's definitely decidable. If it's decidable that it's not provable, it's not provable. So decidability has a bigger cardinality. This is the range, right? Provability is a subset of decidability. Is a base a subset? Is base set? Now imagine you're at Ashley Furniture. Hey Bill, we got the king mattress, we got the nightstand, we got the dresser, and we got the add-along dresser as well. No thanks Bill, we'll just take the base set. Sensorality is base set. Sensorality sets base. So now overall, again, we're progressing conceptualization, we're representing that with complete sentences or linguistic representations, and then some sort of this flipping aspect is what's going to stabilize our definition directly. We're going to produce a very simple linguistic construction and then flip like 2 letters and then it's just like stabilized and done. And then the leftover consonants is the word form for the next axiomatic derivation. Because we still have some sort of like radial symmetry or attempt at symmetry. Again, the chirality is not linear. And so that's why we have tend, contend, and like tort, contort. There's another one. Sensuality is contortion. Perversion is contortion. But again, as we said yesterday and previously, right, you read in one direction. And then these shapes contain this fundamental stability of 2, which is emerged chirally, with chirality. And so there's just some sort of flipping, but generalization to specificity with this natural inversion already present in language. We just have to get our concepts in the right order. We got to be right there. But sensuality sets base. Serendipity is happy happenstance. Again, another one of these, because again, like serendipity is very clear to me on a direct personal level. It just kind of bubbles up into my vocabulary that I'm using on my day-to-day basis to myself walking around. And it's like I don't have like anything to pair it to, but it's 100% part of this derivation. And so a natural definition, what is serendipity? It's happy happenstance. Just kind of happens, right? And that's kind of the verbiage I've been using. Because again, this whole time I can't break the irreducibility of language. I have to form this logical structure, and again, the most arrogant, delusional, incompetent, selfish, pathetic environment ever. No one respects the law. None of this, like a lot of the presentation I'm doing, frankly, it would just be a law citation. But regardless, finishing up this episode, what is circumstance to happenstance? Is funny happy? Is happy fun? So again, like I said, reducing our linguistics, stabilizing sensuality by direct iteration, we have to be extremely close. Understanding what sensuality is, when we say essential, that is just an iterated form of sensuality. That is the complete linguistic conceptual representation of sense. What is sense to sense orality? Again, literally completing that syllability. Not done yet, clearly, but again, at this point, with that step yesterday, the fact that there's not $100 million legitimately of my money in my bank account, again, you've destroyed my personal life. Publication, Brad doing science means nothing to me. Frankly, being able to leave my parents' house with substantial money that I have rightfully earned is like the most poignant thing that I want to happen. My parents don't get this science stuff. They don't care about this science stuff, and the lack of treating me like a fucking professional my entire life is what I want resolved. And what the fact that that has not happened now is profoundly, again, simply stating the crimes. This is the most prolific suppression of scientific information in history that subsequently directly immediately causes the most death and destruction in its entirety globally. That's me as Attorney General, me as a fucking person. I have been brutalized my entire life because people do not know how to do anything besides play games all day and compete over nothing. Sports have destroyed this fucking society. But that's not really true. Society sucks. It just fucking sucks. And so my life would change without any publication, without any news story, without anybody knowing anything that I've done. My life is just as illegally suppressed as it is right now. Just my relationship with my parents, specifically my mom, is not fucked over money, which is disgusting. Because again, I don't have access to social structures, including lawsuits, including everybody that's caused me damages. And so it just continues to destroy my life. It has ruined my life. It has destroyed my health clearly. Again, grave bodily harm. No one cares. No one ever cares. No words can come out of my mouth to ever make anybody behave. My rights continue to be violated. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution, the Fifth Amendment, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Humanity has failed, continuing to lie. And again, it is a physical inevitability to disseminate the form of logic to the entire fucking species. Why you continue to obliterate my life. Every time I get in a car, that is another risk. Every time another day goes by, it's another risk. My parents are in their late 60s. You guys have destroyed my existence. It is disgusting. Please give me my money in my bank account. There is no other linguistic representation of what sense could be. And every time you say common sense, or I sense this, or that makes sense, it's sensual. And so, again, we should be, again, it wouldn't be surprised me if it was in the next episode, but again, regardless, I've already shown the completion. I've already shown the complete reduction of linguistic form to specific resolution. Speciality is special with an ITY. Why waste one more day that I have on this fucking planet with my parents' family? But obviously nobody cares, and I continue to emphasize, once the law makes sense, the laws will be amended to reflect human behavior, and you will be punished according to the consent you have violated and to the destruction that you have caused. That is what I have for now. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.